Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about ARON replying, AMC causing a second squeeze, the hidden message, and many more in this video. Now, first we're taking a look at this. So ARON has come out recently to reply to something, which is talking about, here are the facts that some of you want to ignore or refuse to accept. The industry-wide domestic box office in movie theaters was over $11 billion 5 years in a row pre-COVID. It was over $10 billion 11 years in a row pre-COVID. In 2024, 4 long and trying years after COVID, it was still only about $8.8 billion, down by more than 20% from full year 2019 levels, the last pre-COVID year. And so this has been one of the biggest factors we've always talked about. And some people still fail to obviously acknowledge that, which is understanding that we are still obviously recovering, but we're projected to be even bigger because of what's to come. And so this is what the fundamental difference that you have to be able to differentiate between the current market now and the current market pre-COVID. But another factor that people don't take into consideration is understanding the fact AMC and ARON has come out to say that we don't need a box office like previous box office to make the same amount of money. AMC has obviously made their management more efficient. They have made themselves more cost efficient, where they're able to obviously make more profit. Evidently, we've seen in the past, and of course with some of their EBITDA results in the past as well, in which they reported. And so this is the big thing that we have to understand, which is going over into the next few months, next few years, whilst the box office we have to take into consideration is still not as big as before, we are still able to profit from this. And so you can also see, because of obviously what happened during COVID, as a result, many of our major competitors had to file for bankruptcy. Not AMC, we navigated these uncharted waters with considerable skill. And so whilst people like to focus on the fact that, AMC is obviously suffering as a whole, not just an individual company, but every company in this industry is obviously suffering because of the box office, you have to remember AMC managed to get through it. They didn't go bankrupt where some other firms obviously did. And that's the biggest understanding, and that's the biggest point. Because had AMC did go bankrupt, then the short sellers would have won. But it's because AMC didn't go bankrupt. It's because they were able to survive through this that the short sellers are trapped. And that's why the squeeze obviously is still there. And so you can see, but finally, here's the bright side of all of this. As we have been saying for quite some time, after a slow start to 2025, the box office in the US looks like it will show considerable growth. And the 2026 box office looks to be even bigger still. There is real operational leverage in our business. With revenue static, profits are greatly stressed, but with revenues rising, the profits rise even more so. And so this is obviously talking AMC about optimistic that rising box office over the next year or two will be a great boom for AMC. And you can see how they're obviously reflecting to this. We saw this. IMAX with laser to add 80 AMC locations in US. We talked about the recent new screens installs that they have as well globally, not just within the US. We talked about the AMC Go plan and multiple other things as well. So this is what we've said. ARON and AMC has been highlighting the fundamentals for a very long time. They've talked about obviously the market-wide fundamentals in terms of the box office, in terms of attendance, and they've also talked about in detail the individual performance that AMC is doing. And so when you pair the two together, this is why you got to understand that AMC has shown a lot of potential and why AMC will show considerable growth in the future. And again, people who are obviously talking about how AMC revenue is not going up, you have to understand that AMC's revenue is obviously directly related with the box office. And if we were to see the box office to be even higher, then we're going to be seeing the AMC revenue even higher. And so that's the important point to obviously take under consideration. Now, let's take a look at this. Imagine if AMC squeezes, aided by an old nemesis who see more value in squeezing old short mates than pennies out of retail. Squeeze short hedge funds empty their BTC reservoirs. GME buy huge amounts of Bitcoin at low price, causing a second squeeze as Bitcoin rise again. So let's talk about this, and we can break this down into 3 parts in which I will cover all about it. So firstly, AMC squeezes aided by an old nemesis. Now, for those of you who are familiar with obviously the Volkswagen squeeze situation, essentially that was not a battle between retail versus institutions, rather institutions and institutions. And obviously the long side won, hence it caused the squeeze. Now, firstly, bear that in mind. Secondly, it's about talking about squeezing old short mates because there's more value than pennies out of retail. Because we have seen that the money that's involved with shorting right now is very, very minimal. There is not that much money to be made when you consider all the cost that they have to put in, when you consider all the swaps that's obviously in this. However, if we were to see AMC squeeze, there's obviously a lot more money to be made. When we just take a look at AMC right now, if you were to short AMC and it goes from 2.78 to 0, you will only make that amount of money. So for every share, you're able to make $2.78 worth. But if AMC were to even squeeze to, and again, this is only a throwing just a number out there. Like I said, the floor price is even higher. But for the sake of this example, even if AMC were to only squeeze to $100, it would still be so much more money to be made than shorting AMC at $2.78 to $0. And so you can obviously understand that the money and the value involved with AMC squeezing is way more than shorting. And we have seen how short hedge funds and just institutions in general have thrown other institutions under the bus in the past before. And so if they were to see that opportunity, I definitely think that they will do so. Now, obviously, this will then squeeze the short hedge funds to empty their Bitcoin reservoirs. And we talked about how some firms are obviously trying to use crypto as collaterals. And if we were to see AMC squeeze, then they will have to sell their collaterals. They will have to sell their assets to obviously cover the squeeze, to cover the shares. And if they were to sell all of their Bitcoins, it would then obviously cause the Bitcoin to drop in price. And then thirdly, GME to buy huge amounts of Bitcoin at a low price, causing a second squeeze. Now, GME buying Bitcoin is something that we have discussed already. But one thing that I want to go more into is understanding this. So previously, there was this post, GameStop's new investor relations website looks suspiciously like Berkshire Hathaway's. Coincidence? I think not. This isn't just aesthetic redesign. This is a deliberate signal. So what it was a post which compared the GameStop investor relationship with the Berkshire Hathaway one. And you can see how the homepage and the investor relationship page are very similar to one another. And this was before GameStop even announced that they were going to buy Bitcoin. And people already suspected is GameStop going into a direction where they want to be a firm that is similar to Berkshire Hathaway, where they obviously invest in assets. And then shortly after, we obviously saw the news of GameStop saying that they are going to be buying Bitcoin. And so relating the two together, what I think is a possibility is understanding that GameStop wants to be the Berkshire Hathaway, but in the crypto space. So they want to value invest. They obviously want to buy assets that are in the crypto space that with the same context, with the same reasoning and the fundamentals that Berkshire Hathaway did with the stocks in which they've bought. And so that's obviously going to prove great when we see them obviously raise the money to do so and buy into these crypto. And of course, just like how we've seen Berkshire Hathaway, and for those of you who obviously studied history, Warren Buffett was able to accumulate big amounts of shares because he waited for the perfect moment. He waited every time for shares to be on discount. And so if we were to see Bitcoins being sold off and Bitcoins to be at a lower price and GME to then value invest and purchase a bunch of Bitcoin at a low price, at a discounted price, you can see how they're going down the Berkshire Hathaway. And so that's why I talked about how we are seeing GME and AMC to be having, causing that second squeeze and how they're relating with one another. And we have to also understand is that GME share price is still being massively manipulated. The short selling manipulation of order flow, routing and dark pooling is blatant. And we talked about this, which is understanding that when you take a look at how GME's fundamentals were in terms of what they're going to do, in terms of their strategies, their efficiencies, they obviously deserve to be a lot higher price. Yet all we've seen, despite having good fundamentals, despite having good potentials, good future projections, is GME's price dropping. Now the reason for that is obviously very obvious. We talked about the manipulation, we talked about the suppression, and that's obviously what they're doing. And that's because they're worried about, like what we talked about here, with causing a second squeeze when they are able to purchase Bitcoin and value invest just like Berkshire Hathaway did in the past. You see how some of their biggest stocks obviously into Apple, into Coca-Cola, and of course others as well. And that's what GameStop can do with Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other crypto that they deem as good investments. And so this is what we have to wait. And this, like Berkshire Hathaway, he studied for years, he took the long term, and that's what GME is looking like they want to do as well. Now, as always, comment down below what you guys obviously think. We can also see, and this is something that I want to put emphasis on. So Adam Aron recently made a reply. Now, I want to focus on the second reply, in which he says he calls himself a large AMC shareholder, not the largest. You can see, as a large AMC shareholder. Now, recently in the videos, we covered how Adam Aron actually talked about in the past, he was the largest AMC shareholder. But now he's saying that he's only as a large AMC shareholder. So the difference in wording here is very important, because now he's saying he's not the largest. But the question is, therefore, who is then the largest AMC shareholder? Who is the largest retail shareholder? And what we can obviously get from that is then understanding people are realizing the opportunities. People are, of course, constantly buying, and that's what they're waiting on. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching this video. I'll catch you guys next time.